Pastor Dave. So what were you telling me about Holy Humor Sunday?
Some traditions celebrate Holy Humor Sunday, the Sunday after Easter, as a way to kind of let go of the heaviness of Easter and get a little levity. And I've had some of my colleagues tell me it's essentially people telling bad jokes from the church. Appropriate jokes, but they're kind of groaners. There are a lot of really bad puns. The one I shared is, why did the woman have a statue of Jesus in the garden? Because he arose. And things like that that dominate the service, kind of telling funny, silly, appropriate for church jokes. And they celebrate the season after, or the season of Easter, the first Sunday after Easter, which a good deal of my colleagues take as a day off or a Sunday off, or they don't want to do as much preparation because they've been so busy for Holy Week. They just tell a lot of bad jokes, and I decided I only know good jokes, so I couldn't participate.
Well, now you have to tell me a good joke.
A good joke? Oh, now you're going to make me think. I can't think of one right now. It will come to me, I promise. Because there's so many really funny things to that make us laugh in church, and I could tell you funny stories of people sitting in the sanctuary when I'm preaching, because I could see everything, and I'll tell you a story, and I won't tell you which church it was, of one day watching one of my parishioners balance their checkbook. Because when they wrote out their check, they always wrote in the ledger, and they then put their ledger away. And one day I looked out, they put their check in the plate, they wrote in their ledger, then they pulled out a piece of paper and started writing numbers down and had a calculator, and I didn't know whether to laugh or tell them to stop, or so there's funny things like that which just make me laugh all the time. So.
Well, there's no time like the present. You notice that your checkbook is balanced, and you're like, I better do this right now, or else I'm going to forget.
Just be mindful. I can see everything from the pulpit, and sometimes I had a young lady once who, when texting was first really, really big, she would text through the entire service. So I said to her, "Why are you texting during?" She says, "How can you tell I'm texting?" And I said, "Because you're looking down, you're not looking up." And so the next week she said she didn't look down, she texted looking up. I said, "I can still tell you're texting." She says, "How can you tell I'm texting?" I said, "I could see your shoulder muscles because your arm from texting." And the next week she wore a bulky sweater and texted anyway. And I said, "You're texting again." She said, "How can you tell you I'm texting?" I said, "Because I know you're not going to stop now." So I can see everything from the pulpit.
You know what? Maybe she was just texting sermon notes to her friends who were missing it.
No, there's a boy. And she knew that the boy's parents went to church and he didn't, so she knew she could text him on Sunday mornings, and his parents wouldn't be around to, be at the other end of the messages. So.
Well, so when I was a student, I would have trouble focusing during class. It was actually a real problem for me through elementary school, especially, and then somewhere around junior high, I kind of figured out a trick. But what would happen is my teacher would say something in the lecture, and I would get excited. And my brain would just start going all sorts of different directions, thinking about all the different connections I could make based on that fact or that, interesting point. But then by the time I came back to reality, the bell was ringing, and I realized I'd missed the rest of the lecture. So I was trying to figure out a solution to my problem. Why does my brain do that? And I figured out really somewhere around junior high that if I doodled, I could focus on everything the teacher said.
Oh, cool.
Keeping my hand busy doing something helped me focus on listening and paying attention. And it took a little trial and error, because I would doodle it in my notebook, but then when I would go back to read my notes, they were messy. So I started keeping a second notebook. So I had one notebook for my notes and then another smaller one just for doodles. And it was around high school, one of my teachers noticed and said, "I noticed you're doodling in class." And I told her, I said, "This is why." And she kind of looked doubtful at me, and I said, "You know what? Next time you see me doing it, just call on me and ask me a question at random, and I promise I will be able to answer it." So she did, and I was able to answer it, and at that point she just sort of nodded and was like, "All right, you can just keep on doodling then."